Let me know if you can hear me. So you can hear me? You still can hear me? Okay. Yeah, so sorry everybody. The last time I have no idea. I'm in an area where it is it's, anywho. So what we want to do is make sure because the first time it was recording, so I guess that's kind of hung up. So if it does not make itself available, I'm going to use this one right here to make sure to cover all that in paraphrasing what I did the first time with talking about you will bounce back and the process of overcoming. So we're going to tap into it right now and get into this because obviously this is something that needs to come across that people need to have. And we had a lot of people on, so hope everybody gets back in and joins back in the chat. So feel free to chat. So again, we're going to talk about bouncing back. You will bounce back. Life's going to bring challenges to us. No one's exempt from that, even though we might think at times that we are, but we're not. And when those situations come, there's one thing to have a situation. It's another thing when you got a series of situations that begins to occur in your life. Typically, when you start to see these out of normal situations that comes that shifts you and what's going on, it will shock you or freeze your will because it's abnormal or now all of a sudden it's overwhelming. So one of the downsides is when you're going through a lot of difficulties, when you're really being challenged, um, when the flood of disfavorable situations is happening, it seizes your willpower. And so that's the worst thing you want to happen because it is your willpower that's needed to overcome and to override what is going on. So now you're in this threshold of a battle, but you don't even have the power to pull from. So what do? How do we come out of that? What's the process to do with that? Because the reality is there's obviously a process that we're aware of or don't know that's coming at us that's strong enough to bring in these disfavorable waves. Okay? And so what you got to do is you got to ask the question, what's happening, what should be happening. If they're not matching, then you realize there's something going on. When situations come in, a lot of times we get caught up and keep looking up under it. We keep looking up under the floodgates. Everything's flooding in. You matching the energy of what's coming at you instead of looking above it. And when we ask those questions, what's happening, what should be happening, that allows you to look above what is going on. It's a metaphor of seeing the whole landscape versus getting a linear view of what's going on. And typically there is I was last episode we were talking about the chains. There's a chain link connected to the outcomes that you're experiencing. You might not see it. Because a lot of times we're not thinking about the cycles and all the different things that's going on. One of the first things I was bringing out is when we're talking about trying to bounce back, the first thing you got to do is you got to address what you're avoiding. What are you avoiding? Because wherever you avoid continues. What you avoid strengthens the loop and the cycles that you're dealing with. You're not going to be able to erase it. You're going to have to change the cycle. You're going to address the rhythm. You got to figure some kind of way to disrupt it. But it's hard to disrupt it when we don't know what's going on, when we're just looking at a linear view. So what is ever happening to us? Look at who's benefiting from the conflict, who's fueling it, right? Who's gaining from it? What relationships that are all right there? Because once you can address these things, then you can strategically start to move in a different direction. Because what you got to do is you got to apply a counter force against the force coming at you. But that's a process. So when you start to understand some of the things that's related, that's enabling for the situation to do what it's doing, you're also looking at the opposite of the things that's allowed to be, and you're going to operate in the opposite of it. Why? Because you got to change the dynamics of it. You don't change the dynamics of it by being the equal action with it. It doesn't work like that. This is one reason why when we talk about, we use the term forgiveness. A lot of people put it on the emotional side, but forgiveness is also a power. Forgiveness means is talking about rerouting the direction of energy. I am constantly receiving this, so I'm going to give something different to change what I'm receiving. All right. So what we're doing is we're working the correspondence. We're working the law of relativity. This leads to that. If this keeps happening, then I gotta look at that so I can change this. Okay. And so some things are directly matching us. We gotta be real about that. Am I identifying with, or there's things I already have harbored or I've already done or continue to do, or I'm silently nesting on, that's allowing me to be in this situation right here that's matching. If it doesn't match, do we know there's something outside you? So that means you have to now go on the strategy of resetting the environment, clarifying the situations, and so that way it's enough strength in the environment that it supports the new outcomes that you want, and it lessens the other disfavorable situations to be either inactive or has minimum of weight. So we start talking about gravity and karma, some of these terms we use out here to coin it, is really based upon the weight. Okay. If some of you that, if you understand about that, get my book, Moments in Time. So I talk about the law of gravity, how to talk about your Kairos moment, but I also talk about these things inside the metaphysics of prayer and meditation. And it really hits in there too as well. So, but what you want to do is you want to create enough weight, in other words, your actions, your thinking, your thoughts, to make sure that it's stronger than the very thing coming at you. If it is, then you can change the situation because now you have the power to reroute it. But until you do, the situation is able to still have free reign to do what it's doing. This is why we got to figure out what's happening, what should be happening, and how and why it is. Okay? And so when we start to get that understanding, that intelligence, we now can start operating on the counteractor. So I want to think about the chain link. So the chain link is connected to those outcomes. There's another chain link that connects to the outcomes that you want. Okay. And so I mentioned a popular scripture. A lot of people, they quote all the time. If you've been to church or if you've been in certain spiritual circles, you probably heard this expression, that it goes, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you. Now, I was trying to break that down from a metaphysical point of view and a spiritual point of view, not the religious point. So we're not even going there. Okay? So we're talking about the origins of your seek. All right? And so we're talking about seek first the kingdom. In other words, kingdom referring to a realm or a domain, which means it's an operative knowledge that's figuratively of what I'm talking about, those 10, that chain with those 10 different links in it. So I got to seek the chains and see what's operating in the knowledge of them. What am I looking at? I'm looking in this chain, and I'm looking at the outcomes I'm experiencing in my life. If it's producing what I want to manifest in my life, cool, we're good. If it's not, now we got to start tracing some things to make sure we can change some things. So if we're avoiding things, we're going to continue to let the chain stay strong and let it build momentum and keep bringing at us what's coming at us. We don't want that. Okay? Feel free to share this live, this YouTube. This is going to help somebody out. Okay? So when we have that link, when we start to see where it is, we're going to look at what knowledge, what my ideas is, what my attitude is, what my practices are, what environments, all that is in part of the 10 links in this chain. If they're not matching the outcome, right, I have to change it. Because what's happening is, so let's say for example, so I got these 10 links in this chain, but 7 of those links don't mirror what is favorable for me. Well, to make it simple, for the sake of the live, what is matching my soul rights? What is matching my soul rights? The things that's happening, is it matching the love I have for myself? The things that's happening, is it matching the hope I desire to see for my life and for others? Is what's happening, is it messing with my preservation? What's happening, is it messing with my wellness? We can go on and so on. All right. If it's not, then we gotta look at, okay, we got this 10 links in this chain, and we gotta look at it, it's like, well, 7 of them don't match my love, my wellness, my preservation, my sense of hope, and so forth. So what I got to do is I got to look at those knowledge sources. And I got to separate those to see what it is, understand the consequences. See, this is the problem. A lot of us, we know a lot, but we don't tap into the intelligence of it. When you tap into the intelligence of what you know, is when you understand the consequential relation to what you know. If you don't know the consequential to what you know, and we think in change in rhythms, then you don't know. This is why we keep having certain stuff happen over and over again, and this is why we can't change shit, because we don't understand the consequences, or we love the consequences, and that might be too. And this is where we see people that sabotage their opportunities or sabotage their situations, because what happens is they really love the consequences because it keeps sabotaging, it keeps happening. So obviously there's something inside you that connects with it. But if you don't, we talk about trying to change these links in this chain. So I got to make sure, if I got 7 links in this chain that favors more of the thing shouldn't be favoring me, I got to change it. I got to replace those 7. So ideally you want 100%, right? So there's 3 remaining. That's good. I at least got to change 4 of those links. So that way it now becomes 7, right? So now I got 7 favorable links, and I switched it and say if it's 3 that's not where it needs to be, that's completely fine. Because what I'm doing is I'm changing the probability. We're exercising the law of probability. The more possibility a thing is, the more that outcome will be. So what I gotta do is I gotta scale down the situations to increase the probability for something to happen. So what I'm doing is I'm scaling down the 7 things that's not favorable, and I'm switching it, and I'm replacing it with 4 to match the other 3 that was good in that existing chain link. Now that makes to have 7 favorable situations. So now the probability for it to happen is higher. It's higher because I got 7 scenarios in this chain link, in this overall chain, to create a sequence that's going to be favorable for me to experience what I need to experience. And because that's 7 now, I'm also holding weight. I got weight in the matter to change the outcome. I can change the gravity of the situation, because if I'm consistently operating in now these 7 different links, my habits, my relationships, my decision making, how I feel about myself, the environments I entertain, as long as they stay inside that proximity or that scope, it's creating enough weight to shift some things. And that's what we want to do. So typically when things are happening, it's probably the extreme of what we got going on ourselves. So we got to swing the pendulum from the right to the left. But before it gets to the left, it's got to come from here to down here in the middle. So we got to operate counter actions, counter force, counter environments, counter thinking, counter words we speak inside ourselves and out to others. When I start getting all that in alignment to the point that's inside those 7 links, I now can create a different pull in my life. There's be more pull than push, right? I need to pull in more opportunity. I want to have a resistance against things I don't want. So when I got the 7 right chain links, I now have a sense of power in my situation. It might not show overnight, but if you got the right realm, where it says seek the kingdom of God. God refers to intelligence, spirit, love. How close are these things matching love in my life? How things are matching truth, because God is of light and of truth. So once I start to seek these things, I now activate the forces in life, the forces in the cosmos, to begin to work in conjunction with those very things. But it cannot work if I keep operating in a counter chain link. If I got seven links in this existing old chain that's disfavorable to me, I cannot change the situation. I have to seek the truth. I have to get the intelligence, how to apply from the information that I get to apply, so I can at least get 4 different links to add into with the existing 7 in the old link. So that way now I got 7 favorable links inside the chain, so I can create weight to change my situation. That's what we all have to do. And you can't get caught up in time, because the cosmos are going by time. It's going by the weight of our actions, thinking, and what we exude and project. Life rewards what we project. Life rewards what we accept. Then it duplicates it. And then we keep acting on it, then we keep building on it. So things look very complex because it's just been an acting momentum that we've been operating in. But we got to take the understanding of the laws and the principles and flip it and work it with ourselves, so that way we can create counter actions. So this is what we mean by the process of overcoming, the process of bouncing back. Your bounce back is tapping into changing what you seek, establishing hope. That's the other thing. Hope, the mind, your mind, my mind. We have to have an outlook, and we need hope. And hope, like I was saying earlier, is being able to see above the situation and not below the situation. I can't stay occupied below the situation, because it keeps me there. It keeps me a hostage. It keeps me powerless. It keeps my soul inert. It can't move. It can't act. I can't make sound decisions consistently. So when you're going through hard times, it's your decision making that's under fire, because now I got to create enough decisions that creates a counter force that also favors me getting out of the situation, neutralizing the effect, and favoring the outcomes that I want to exist in fully. And so there is a battle swing that goes on if we're caught up in that. Okay? So once you begin to understand it, once you begin to understand what to seek, you now activate. So this is beyond your make a little note here real fast. You know, you're making progress because you changed the chain links. And so here's I like to call it the universal math. Universal math behind behavior and outcomes in our lives is not based off of certainty. We can look at the proximate of the action that's going on and see what's more likely to happen. So we're going to look at the probability and the averages. So as long as we know we got 7 links in that chain, we hold weight, we got probability, we now can establish a new rhythm, which means we can create a new average that begins to create a new algorithm for us. So now these series of actions are within a certain parameter that's high likely to give me the results that I need. This also, we got to go back to seek. Do my existing things I think about, does it favor what I need to happen, right? And if it does, cool, but if it doesn't, But let's just say what I'm thinking about, now we're gonna go into more detail. If what I'm entertaining, how much weight does it have? I'm thinking the right thing. Do I have the right information that has the most weight? So this we gotta go, this is the other part. Do what I need to know, does it have enough weight in the situation to create a different pool? Because there's certain things that I can know that holds a lot more weight versus knowing certain things that might be right, but they don't hold enough weight. So I wanna make sure that I am at least trying to accumulate the information, the intelligence that I need inside that 7 links that holds a lot of weight. So that way I'm anchored. I'm anchored in my decision making, and the anchoring effects. Think about a boat when it puts the anchor down in the water. It ain't going nowhere, right? So if you want to get, so now things are being pulled to you. You're creating a different gravity. Okay, so that's why we got to not just stop at knowledge, but get into the intelligence of things, because intelligence is a mixture of the wisdom and understanding that you need, so that we have an aerial view. We got intelligence. You also know how to protect the outcomes that you want to be at. Okay. Sometimes the lesson is that we had good things going on and things were flowing well, but we didn't have enough protection. We didn't protect our peace. We didn't protect our money situation. All right. Things happen, but there's an aspect of protection, right? That's also something that's of the spirit, of the intelligence, is to protect. Even in the natural and everyday world, we realize something you got to protect, right? This is why, on a very low level, countries go to war. They're trying to protect something. A lot of times, the interest of the people, it's financial interest, but they're protecting. But we got to do the same thing with our peace. When you have a peace of mind, when you have a state of peace in your life, you now have the responsibility, more the responsibility, to protect it. And so, sometimes the avoidance that you have in your life is that you might have avoided protecting what you had going well for yourself. I've been there, still there, and so that's the lesson you're probably gaining going through this avalanche of mishaps in your life, is that you didn't have enough protection in place. But now that you understand that, now part of your bounce back, because once you embrace the lesson, you're now automatically shifting to the bounce back. Now you're going to bounce back because you got the lessons you need, you got the understanding that you need, and you also know what you need to focus on back in your uprise. Because once you uprise, then you level out. And so in the uprising and the leveling, you understand, like in my example, is protect. I got to protect when I'm leveling off, okay? And so that's what you want to do. You also want to make sure from what's going on now is that you exercise detachment. And that means acknowledging the reality of the situation. And you're allowing it to be the nature of what it is, but you're now removing yourself. So you're exercising the renouncing piece. Without you trying to invoke anything that keeps it going inside itself. You're removing your presence. You're removing your thoughts on it. I'm no longer giving too much. This is not going to stay in rotation of my thoughts. And so I got to go through the process of changing that. So I change my environment, change who I relate with. I adapt to new situations. I start to take in new inputs. Because why? Change my input. I change my environment with the input. I change my output. So that's a part of the bounce back situation. So what I want to do is encourage everybody with that. Sorry for all the technological distortions that was going on. But if you want more insight into some of this stuff, I wrote a book a couple years ago called Immunity from Difficulties. It's actually one of the books a lot of people liked. And it kind of goes and takes you into that. You can hit my link here on the YouTube link, go to my page and scroll there and you'll see it says Immunity from Difficulties. All right. And then also I encourage everybody to soul rights. I think because the soul rights are so simple, people overlook them. But when you start going through situations in your life, you'll be amazed how those simple 11 soul rights that I have written in here will help you begin to see beyond what's happening. Sometimes when we're caught up in the thrust of things, face forward with it, it's just hard to see through it. So sometimes you need an outside voice like I am right now, or outside, someone in your personal circle to really help you see the difference, to help you do that. So you take away what's going on. I got the situation going on. That means it had enough weight to happen. So you got to change the weight of you to counteract it. And I want you to think about the chains. I got 10 links in this chains. I got to make sure that 7 of those links are favoring what I need to happen for myself. I want more peace in my life. I got to make sure I got 7 links. Those links can be of environment, thoughts, or entertain, relationships, etc. But it got to be the favorable links, the 7 favorable links in this chain. If I'm in a situation, I recognize there are 7 out of the 10 disfavorable links in it that's supporting what's going on, that's coming at me, that I don't match with, or I don't desire to have happen no more. Then I got to strategically look above the situation, get an aerial view, understand what's driving it, what supports it, the environment that allows it to exist, the angle and the interest that it's coming from. Once I get that intelligence, once I get that, I'm going now to look at it and do the opposite with a counterintelligence to create the force to weaken it, to bring it to a neutral state, right? And in that, I'm going to make sure I pull 4 knowledge bases or knowledge sources. Seek ye the kingdom. So I'm looking at the realm of knowledge. I'm getting these key little pieces, and not just the information by itself, but the information that holds more weight All right, that means I understand the consequences that's associated with what I need to know, and I'm going to put that together in the link of the chain. So I'm going to add it with the 3 good links that were there and add the 4 with it to give it 7. Now I got 7 links that favors me or favors what I need to happen in the right direction. And it's going to give me enough weight to support, to change the gravity in my situation. The part in the bounce back when you're going through hard times is that, and some people's looking at, you got to understand it spiritually. Change the weight. In other words, apply pressure on new knowledge, new practices, new environments, and be patient operating in that, knowing the outcomes will begin to switch for you. The patience is the part, the impatience piece, the impulsiveness is what throws us off, right? So the understanding helps you to manage your impulsiveness. Because once you understand the principles and laws, you can rely upon them because they don't change based upon our attitude or our angles or our motive and intention. They're biased to what they're set to do and coded inside themselves. And so that's why it's important to understand universal principles and laws like cause and effect, rhythm, correspondence, polarity, some of these principles and laws that we know, So if you want more insight on that as well, just join the Soul House. Some of you I know some people ask about joining the Soul House because they want to tap into my series, Shadow Psychology. Tap into the shadow psychology of the soul. We're going to be doing that on June 21st. So what you need to do is join the Soul House. And all you have to do is just text 1-844-5-WISDOM. And then my team will send you the link so you can join the Soul House. So that way you'll get those alerts. You'll have access to all the replays, not just to the series, but also to all the other stuff that we have in catalog inside the Soul House that will continue. I'm constantly continuing to build in. So I appreciate everybody that's a part of the Soul House, that's joined on the onboarding process, the early process of it. Just check your emails, y'all, because there's emails going out. Check your emails so that way you can make sure you stay in tune. Really, it's important because we're trying to establish a communication piece outside of certain social media stuff sometimes because, they change algorithms, they change our ability to reach each other. So we got stuff going on in our lives. So anyways, check your emails, make sure you're on the email list. If you're not on my email list, just go to my YouTube page, links, click on the email, get into the email list. So that way you still can, you can be in a correspondence. We're trying to build a relationship, build community. Like I said, I'm not the person trying to get caught up in all these hot topic baiting and switching and triggering and all that. I'm too old for all that. If you're trying to live and work through some things, sustain some things, empower yourself, stuff like that, things that's not as quote unquote sexy or entertaining. Once you get tired of that stuff and you want to get some real stuff over here, join the Soul House. That's what we're doing. That's what I'm on. That's what I'm committed to, always have been. And so chime in. Sorry for all the hiccups earlier. If it does show up, if part 1 shows up, definitely check that out. But this right here, hopefully it'll suffice to help you understand. Let me know if you understand. But in the meanwhile, y'all stay up, enjoy your day. Hey, one love.